So before we get into the episode, and I promise I won't interrupt you again, I just wanted to ask you, do you really struggle to know what to post online? Are you someone that wants to build their personal brand but has no idea where you should be building it? The Get Klowt platform gives you a personalized personal branding strategy that tells you who you should be speaking to, what you need to be saying to them, where you should be posting, and how often you should be posting it. And we also send you tailored, personalized content prompts every single day to let you know exactly what you should be posting and where you should be posting it. If you want to get involved, go to get.klowt.com and I will see you in our exclusive community where everyone else on the channel is talking about all their wins and how they can scale their personal brand. Sedge Beswick, thank you so much for being on the Branded podcast. I'm so excited to have you. I've wanted to have you on this podcast for so long.
We've been talking about this forever.
We have been talking about this forever, and I feel like this is going to be a really fun conversation because you're one of my friends, but also like we've done work together and things like that. So I feel like hopefully we've
covered every angle.
We'll cover every angle, yeah. So for people that don't know you, can you give us a brief introduction of you, Sedge? Who is Sedge?
Yeah, this is way harder these days because I feel like I'm figuring it out. But typically speaking, I was Sedge, who ran an influence marketing agency for 8 years. I exited that business in December and I am now consulting for brands. I am a mom, but I've just worked in marketing forever and a day, essentially.
Forever and a day, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've worked in marketing for literally an eternity.
Those days are long, right?
It's a marketing thing though, right? I think it's also a marketing thing and an entrepreneurship thing. Like it's literally like the longest 4 years of my life.
Yeah, it's a 24/7 gig. That's what we signed ourselves up for on both parts.
Oh, 100%. I always say to people, like, I quit my 9 to 5 to now work 24/7.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
people don't really understand, I think, the sacrifice that they need to make. Going back to where you first started, so how did you get into influencer, first of all?
It's actually weirdly kind of what I've always done,
Right.
accidentally. So when I was at uni, my lecturer then was very much like, everyone needs to have a blog. And this was before a blog was even a thing. And it was part and parcel of kind of our course and our syllabus. So I had a blog. I had a blog.
I hope you have a blog.
I do have a blog in my house.
A couple of blogs.
But yeah, I had a blog when I was at uni, which was essentially Nike fangirling and street art, which was all tied into everything I was doing at uni. And I worked at Red Bull at the same time. And everything I did while I was at Red Bull was, how do you make sure that you have key opinion leaders with a can in hand at the right time? And like aged, whatever I was, 18, 19, it was the best gig on the planet. I'd like break into Rock City in Nottingham and you'd have like Dom Broco and Rob Damiani, the lead singer, with a can of Red Bull. And I'd have just like slipped it in his hand as he was running on stage. Then all the press shots would be him with a can of Red Bull that would obviously then get like thrown into the crowd. But that was essentially like the guerrilla marketing aspect of influencer. And then I worked in tech and then I worked at ASOS. And then when I was 27, I set up the business.
Why did you set up a business?
So
what possessed you?
That's a wonderful question, isn't it? Like, would I do what I did now? It was a happy accident for sure. I was actually interviewing to be head of talent for sport and music at Instagram.
Right.
I'd got through 17 interviews. They usually do 20.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And I met this amazing woman who used to be Beyonce's manager. And like very textbook interview question was like, are you interviewing anywhere else? And I was like, well, actually, I like met this guy last night and he's an investor and it was like accidental in Shoreditch House and he wants me to set up an agency. And she was just like, girl, go and do it. Like those opportunities don't come knocking twice. So yeah, I set up the agency about 6 weeks later, I think.
So like the complete coincidence?
Complete coincidence. I'd always said prior to that point, I would never even go agency side. I'd never even work with an agency because for me, I am so obsessive about the brands that I love.
Yeah.
And, you know, being at ASOS, I knew every single aspect and you'd go and sit in meetings about the UX design on the app or where they're going to develop the, you know, returns because the returns cost the business so much money. And you just were so aware of so many different aspects outside of your job. And I loved it. So the thought for me of going agency side and being so kind of linear in your approach and what your focus is, and then having to split your time across brands and work for brands that you didn't necessarily use and believe in, I couldn't grasp that concept. But then all of a sudden there I was 6 weeks later. And the first clients were Instagram, Nike. There were clients that I really believed in too. So it kind of all worked out for the right way quite quickly.
Do you think part of your like enjoyment of your previous roles being like kind of involved in every single aspect of the business is what made Scene Connect so successful?
It was such an amazing opportunity because ASOS at the time was so fast paced, obviously going from strength to strength. The numbers were very much in the green.
The numbers were numbering.
They were working out the way that they should be.
Numbers aren't numbering as much anymore.
Yeah, they reported today another 120 million loss. Like, it's having a tough time. Retail is hard. E-com is hard. So much more competition. Obviously, everything kind of going on within that space. But it was the best place to work.
Yeah.
And I was also the person that went, I'll do that. I'll throw my hands in the ring. No one knew what social was. I was the first social hire. And I just kind of like get my elbows out and work my way into all these weird and different meetings. And I just learned an absolute shit ton. And it was incredible.
Where did you get the confidence to do that? Because that takes balls to do that. Because even then, like, ASOS was fucking huge.
Yeah, I think there was still like 2,000 people when I worked there. Where did I get the confidence from? I've always, like, I'm a people person, right? Like you. I'm happy to go and chat shit to absolutely anyone about anything. And I also found it so infectious to just be around all of these people that were so different and had such different skills. And I was so new in my career. I just wanted to be a sponge and learn as much as I possibly could. And part of that, I was actually listening to a TED Talk recently, and I talk about the fact I, you know, was a trampolinist and I was really competitive and I wanted to be the best at everything I did. And then actually this podcast was like, it's not competitive, it's addiction. And I was like, yeah, I've definitely actually been addicted to working and my career. And listening to someone else relay that, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. It's not as nice saying I was addicted to work as I was competitive to accelerate in my career. But I think that's the truth of it is I just wanted to be the absolute best. I wanted to know as much as humanly possible. And I put in the graft, I put in the hours, and I just would happily go and have weird chats with anyone.
I actually think that's one of the most underrated skills in your career is like having the ability, or at least faking the confidence internally until you have it, to go up to everyone and anyone you possibly can and being like, hi, my name is such and such. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like the
and I think that's such a good point. It's the anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much of I need to impress my manager or I need to be on the CEO's radar and actually some of the people I was closest to was the receptionist or you know, a guy called Malcolm who was in the post room, and it was like really
they know everything, by the
they
way.
know everything,
everyone, comings and goings, the affairs, like everything.
If you needed stuff to happen, in my view, when I was interviewing, like ASOS, my team when I left was 32 people, and I would afterwards go and speak to the receptionist, and I was like, right, what were they like? And if they were rude to her, obviously they give you the big performance in the interview. And I was like, that's the person you need to be nicest to. And that's the person you need to have respect for. And if you don't, you're not right for my team.
I love that. I actually did a post about this about
really?
10 months ago, where I said, if you want to know what someone's really like, go and ask the receptionist, go and ask the security guard at the door, go and ask like the barista who served them their coffee when you went and got a coffee together. Because actually they will tell you the reality of what that person's like. Because if you're only nice to the CEO, you're only nice to the hiring manager. Like, what does that say about your character?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I grew up and my dad would be, I always found it really weird, but every morning, like every Wednesday, the bin men would arrive and my dad would be straight out there with beers, with teas. My dad was encouraging them to drink. I don't know what's wrong with my words today. Can you tell?
Evening.
Got my baby brain. Sorry, he'd be out there with teas, but he'd also give them like Diet Cokes for the day. And obviously they would start their shifts at like 4, 5 a.m. to make sure they could do everything before every household had woken up. And it was those small little things that as a kid, it stuck with me my entire life.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think people really underestimate the value of that. Like, and it's not strategic. It's not like you're going, oh, here's a cup of tea to the binman because they're going to do a better job of collecting your bin.
Exactly.
It's just being a nice person. And I think that translates beyond or far beyond your actual individual actions. Like, for example, you know, obviously I run a personal branding agency.
Do you?
Do I? Your dad has built a personal brand with them, but also with you. And that's then informed how you then operate and how you are treating people and how you're showing up in the world. And I think that's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So you meet a bloke in a bar in Soho House, and he goes, I want to invest in an agency with you. What happens next? And you turn down Instagram, by the way.
I turned down Instagram, but they became a client.
I love that for you.
So it was brilliant.
Of course they did it, Sedge.
But they were also, this Lauren woman was amazing. She was like, look, if you hate it, in Instagram, what's 3 months waiting for the role?
Yeah.
And I actually did think when I like really take it back to being like 27, I was like, right, what I'll do is I'll have a bit of equity in this business. I'll get it up and running and then I'll find someone to run it. Because who am I to be able to like run this agency? And things just snowballed so quickly and we were profitable from month one. And that then obviously gave you a completely different level of opportunities because you could then start to hire staff. You could make sure that you could invest in all of the different areas that you needed to make sure that you ran a really kind of slick operation. And what I was really fortunate for is I think everyone at ASOS to a degree was quite entrepreneurial within their own right. And I think being at that business at that stage really kind of fueled a certain level of talent. And when I left, the CEO, Nick Robertson, was stepping down. And he, for me, is still to this day the most visionary person I've ever met. And just speaking to him, it was all about the customer. It was all about what they needed. He was planning and imagining things that are kind of only really happening for other businesses today. And I really respected him, and I really admired the way that he worked and the way that he ran the business. And that's one of the main reasons for me, after 5 years, it felt like the right time to kind of move on myself. But because the CFO was stepping in as CEO, that does change the business. And a lot of people left at the same time. And subsequently, they're like, oh, Sedge knows what she's doing. Yeah. Let's just give Sedge that brief. And at the time, there weren't a lot of influencer agencies. There weren't a lot of influencer agencies focusing around return on investment. And that really was what we went to market with. So I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have, these are my first X amount of hires and this is what the team structure would look like. I just got there, got a laptop. I didn't even go to the office space, which is so ridiculous. I remember being so anxious in the lift on my first day, being like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why wouldn't I even go and see where this office space is? Because he had 6 other agencies that he'd invested in, all in the same area. But yeah, you just had to just get the fuck on with it.
And I think that's a really underrated skill. It's just like doing something. I think you make it up in your head to be something really dramatic, but actually all the things you worry about typically don't happen. And if they do happen, they're never as bad as you think they are.
Yes. Yeah. You're like Randall from This Is Us, like crisis mode. What is the most extreme thing that can happen? Brilliant. That'll never happen. That'll
never happen. Yeah. I always think that. And it's funny. I was talking to someone yesterday about this. I think I have quite a laissez-faire attitude to risk, but I really care about tiny details. Like I'll be like relentless about why is there not enough padding on that website? But then when it comes to we didn't win that pitch, I'm like, cool, no worries. There'll be another one. And I think there's a fine balance between, particularly when you're running a business, between worrying about shit and also realizing that you can't control everything.
See, I was the opposite way when I ran the business. So I was very much like 1,000,001 miles an hour, loads of ideas. I had an unbelievable first employee, a woman called Steph, who stuck with me for over 5 years. And she was so detail orientated that I just knew I didn't have to think about the detail. Yeah. And often we'd come out of pictures and she'd be like, you just said we can do that. And I was like, yeah, we can. She was like, brilliant. I'll go away and spend the next week researching how to make it happen. Yeah. And I was like, but I know you will.
Sell it and then worry about how to deliver it after.
Exactly. And I was like, this is the joy of our space. People aren't doing this yet. So let's be the first. 100%. Let's lead by example. Let's get that case study in. And she always did. Like she never, ever dropped a ball. And so for me, I very much went into I can just do the kind of big thinking and I know and I can sleep at night that the detail
are being taken care of.
It's all being taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah. We're really lucky we're in that spot now. And I think that's been it's allowed me the room to then do the big picture thinking. I think it's very, very difficult to be able to work on your business when you're working in it. And I think up until this point, I've been really in the weeds of even to the point of I used to still write client content not too long ago.
Stop it.
Which is wild. Yeah. Literally, I was like, no, that needs to be different because I understand that's my area of expertise. The personal branding strategy and execution is my that's what the business is built on, right? It literally started out as a ghostwriting agency pretty much for LinkedIn, but also I've got other things I should be worrying about.
Yeah, and that's the joy of running it, right? There is always 1,000,001 things that you can do, and it was the biggest switch for me was exactly that. How do I take my mentality to work on the business versus in the business? And I felt as soon as I managed to kind of get to that point, and I don't think I ever fully nailed it, but the team were happier because I was out their way, I was letting them do their thing, I was giving them room to grow, and subsequently I could then focus on what markets are we launching in, what disciplines do we need next, what's the next big client that we're going to go and win, versus really worrying about which influencers are we going to put in, and can I look at the CPMs of their last 30 days, and then I can tell you whether they'll drive the performance they need. And it undermines people, right?
Yeah, bottlenecks everything as well. Yeah. And I think the room to grow piece is really important. That's taken me a very long time to learn that of you can't do everything. Yeah. And actually you need to be doing the things you're really fucking good at. Best players in the best seats, and you're not the best seat to be copywriting. Yeah. Or looking at the impressions that influencers have had over the last 6 months.
But you only learn this the hard way.
I know. And it is a hard lesson. Right?
There's so many hard lessons running a business.
Oh my God. It humbles you so hard, doesn't it? You go into business being I can start a business because I'm so good at this thing. And it's actually you're average.
And you have a great day. And then the next day you're
Tragic.
This is going to be brilliant because yesterday XYZ happened. And then you're like, oh, I just hate that thump in the stomach. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. And you need to, actually, I've learned this. Like, it used to be high, low, high, low, high, low all the time. It's fucking exhausting. I think I don't ever go too high or ever go too low now. It's just like even keeled.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, and again, going back to what I was saying about being laissez-faire about stuff, I think it's because I know this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Not everything's urgent. And actually, you need to focus on the things that you need to focus on right now. And you can't do everything in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
So 6 weeks in, profitable, like amazing. Most businesses, it takes like 2 years or something to make profit, which is fucking wild. We were the same. We were profitable from day one. And I think that's the beauty of a service-based business, right? It's like as long as you win a client, like you're in profit.
Yeah.
What happens next? Like, you hire your first person, you said they're with you for 5 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So Steph was with us for 5 years. We had the worst office on earth. We had no windows, no aircon.
Sorry. Wait. You had no windows.
We had no windows.
Was it a prison?
It was essentially a prison.
Oh my God. What? Why?
Because it was just this. We were so tiny. We just took the smallest space possible on the top floor of the T building. Yeah. But we grew, and every year we were within the same building, but like we were moving into bigger spaces. And I always say, winning breeds winning. And we were really, the momentum was high. So, and the clients we were winning were clients that I believed in, that the team believed in. Like, Steph probably never knew this, but she was the only person who applied to be an account exec at Connects, because no one knew who we were. No one knew who I was. We didn't really have any clients to be able to talk about. And then I lecture a lot at universities. She'd seen me lecture, got in touch for the job, and obviously hired her as quickly as I possibly could.
Before she realised.
Yeah, I needed some resource. And as I say, she was exceptional. And I think the success of a business is always down to the employees.
100%.
And the team that you build and the team that you invest in. And yeah, I got lucky, right? I hired the only person that applied who happened to be the best person I possibly could have hired.
She was probably the best person there because she was so bought into you. It sounds like she bought into you while you were lecturing.
Yeah. And we've stayed in touch now. So I've known her, whatever it is, 8-9 years. I speak to her probably every day in some capacity somehow. And I'm now her biggest cheerleader and mentor from a work perspective, but she's a really good mate too. Yeah. And she knew how the business worked. She believed in the business, and you can't pay any salary on earth for someone to believe in the business as much as you do.
I think that's a really important thing from both sides of the fence. In my experience, we haven't taken investment yet. I don't know if we will or we won't, but one of the things that I talk to a lot when we have friends who are VCs or who do private equity deals, it's all about the founder. It's all about, the ideas, whatever, but they need to know that the founder can execute it. And I think it's the same for employees. I think they need to buy into you, because every agency has a job that's similar to people that we would hire, or similar to people that you would hire when you were running Scene. But I think you don't need someone to do a job. You need someone to help you figure it out. Yeah. And so there needs to be a buy-in from an emotional level about them feeling like that you can take them to the moon, but there will be oxygen there. Yeah. Because if they don't, then it is just like a plug in, plug out.
Exactly. And she was well looked after, because she looked after me, she looked after the business, she looked after the team as we grew, she looked after the clients, and subsequently, again, when you're small, you don't have to go through the formal HR process of
you can
pay rises and benefits and all of that stuff. You can just be like, right, you're worth your weight in gold. I need you to stick here. Yeah. And she was indispensable to me. And subsequently, she had those conversations earlier on about moving elsewhere. Her salary wouldn't have matched other industries or other businesses that she could have looked at. And I do think it worked for both parties for that 5 years until we got really big.
How important do you think those first hires are? Because I think certainly in my experience, I was very, very similar situation. My first hire was Danielle, and I already knew, I basically poached her from my previous employer. She was their intern. And I was like, I'm leaving. Do you want to come? And she was like, okay.
She's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm in.
Yeah, whatever it is. And it was that. She was like, yeah, cool. What do you want me to do? I was like, well, what do you want to do? And she was like, social media. I was like, done.
Yeah, that works for a brand building LinkedIn business.
Yeah, exactly. And we sort of trundled along together, and she's still here now. She's our marketing manager. But I do think that, again, you said lucky. I was lucky. I knew someone who I trusted, and that I thought could do the job, and that I could invest in, and that could invest in me, and we kind of danced off into sunset together. How important do you think getting those hires are at the first stage of a startup?
It's crucial. When we were always going through fast growth for the first 5 years. And every time, as I said, winning breeds winning. Every time we'd win something new and we'd need new people, we then won something else and we needed more people. And I spent 25% of my time just meeting people. It wouldn't necessarily be with a job in mind, but I was like, if you're being talked about, if you're good, if you're, you know, your name keeps reappearing or cropping up in some capacity, I just want to have a conversation and I want to have a chat. And some of the best hires that I made were people that were not, you know, through a recruiter or jobs live on LinkedIn. It was people I just got recommended, got introduced to, and subsequently was like, how quickly can I hire you? And those people always paid for themselves. And I remember I'd hired quite a junior team to start with, because essentially influence marketing hadn't been around for ages.
But also young business, right? Like you never have the cash to be able to invest in chunky people at the start.
And I remember my first employee put them on 45k, and my conversation with finance was like, what? And I was like, they're going to be negotiating with influencers and celebrities. They can pay for themselves literally in a month. So actually we get 3 months. They didn't have a job at the time because one of the businesses had gone through a round of redundancies. And I was like, let's give it a go. They're not leaving a job. It's 45k, which felt like millions at the time based on the size that we were, and came in and within 2 months had saved 45k on influencer and celebrity fees from being unbelievably talented from a negotiation perspective, which was a skill I didn't have in my junior team, who were all leaving school or university and being trained up by us. And as we got bigger, you couldn't hire juniors and train them and invest that time. You needed people that were more senior, that had been around the block, that could also then invest and train the team, because my time needed to then be growth and accelerating the business further.
Did you instinctively know that, or did you learn that?
I learned everything on the go. Yeah. It's just one of those things of like, the longer you are in the business, the longer you're doing it, the more you started to work out who is right for the business, who is right from a value perspective, what do we need, how am I going to speak to these investors and make sure that they know I am making the right decision, smart investment. And again, it helps when you've been profitable every single month that you've been trading, because it shows you're doing something right.
Yeah. Do you think if you were going to do it again, you would take investment?
That's a brilliant question. So the way my investment structure worked was very much a incubator, find talent who are really passionate about a subject matter, and they take away essentially the shared resource, HR, finance. So I never had to think about my month end. It was submitted to me. I didn't have to think about keeping company's house up and running. So essentially I could do what I was good at and focus there. And as the business really grew, we were exceeding the performance of the other agencies that had been within the group, some of them for like 20 odd years. And we had a really brilliant conversation, which is like, what happens next? So I own 40% of the business, they own 60% of the business. And we went to go through a private equity deal. And that's when the kind of wheels fell off slightly, because I also was trying to get the US up and running. I was also pregnant with my first kid, and it was just everything all at once. And this process lasted 18 months. And they say to you through that process, you will drop balls. And I was a bit arrogant. I was like, come on.
I'm Sedge.
Like, I was like, I work 24/7. I don't have anything to distract me. Like, it is fine. And actually, as it happens, I dropped every fucking ball. And I learned everything the hard way. And I just felt like all I was doing for really an 18-month process was picking up pieces and trying to kind of put plasters over things. And as it happens, by extending that process, they were trying to find the cracks in the business, and they were trying to find out what, you know, may or may not go wrong as part of that investment. But I learned, I never knew really what an investor was before having an investor. I never really knew kind of, and again, he was very like laissez-faire, chilled out, lives in Nepal, wasn't involved day to day. It was essentially, if you make money, happy days. And if you're not, then you'll have some difficult conversations. And going through that process, I just learned so much more about investors, what they want, how it works. Even just the language is completely different. And I'm at a crossroads now of like working out what I do or don't do next. And I've always said now, like, I want to own 100% of my business. But actually, I'm also like, well, why do I want to own more than 40% of the business that I graft in 24/7 that necessarily other investors weren't putting in those hours or bringing in the scale to help the business to grow. But I really know what I would be looking for and what their role would be and how they would help that growth get from kind of A to B far quicker.
Do you think there's a big difference between money and smart money?
Yes.
What? Explain.
Just in its most simple form, you can take money off anyone. And there are enough people that would benefit from, you know, EIS schemes to help them from a tax perspective. And, you know, 1 in 5 might be lucky and they might see a return on it. Other than that, you know, they save a bit on their tax. They're not that bothered. What you really want to have is someone that is going to be there almost as a bit of a coach who has got something that you don't have. And that might be a network, that might be access to tech, it might be access to money, it might be, so again, you can just really double down and focus on what you're good at to grow. Like, we essentially don't set up our own businesses for the fun of it to be able to say we run businesses. Money makes
no, it's so much easier to make money employed. I would be earning like 3 times what I earn if
Exactly. So there is a long game that we are playing, and I never ever thought about my exit plan with Connects. I was just, you know, again, 27, like almost kind of starting my career, fucking love what I did, was really good at what I did. And then all of a sudden, everything that was being asked, I was having to do crisis plans of like, if I died as part of this PE process, like what the next steps for the business would be. And I was like, shit, I have never taken 5 minutes to think about what my exit plan is here. And obviously I did not have any exit plan that anyone would probably write down on paper and sign off and agree. But now every single thing that I'm thinking about next is like, what is my end game? And what do I want for me? What do I want for the business? What do I want for my family? And that is what then means that is smart money. That is the right person. Thanks very much. That's not going to be right for me.
The best advice I was ever given when I first started the business was, and it was kind of more of a holistic statement than just money, but the thing was, this person said to me was, well, what do you want to earn? And I was, because we were talking about goals, right? We were talking about, you know, what should year one look like for Klowt? And they were like, well, what do you want to earn? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, what do you want to earn? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, that's a fucking problem. Like, you need to know what you need to earn in order for this to be profitable, because the business can only pay you if you make a profit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. And you have
I didn't
tough
know
months.
that's how this works.
Yeah, but you have tough months and you're the first person to go, don't worry, I'll just dock my salary because I'll make sure
or
I
not
can
pay
cover
yourself.
the team.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that is a thing that I think a lot of the narrative that I see on social media is like, work for yourself, stop letting someone get rich. And it's like, I don't think you understand that when there are tough months, that the owner of the business doesn't get paid, period. Because typically you get paid on profit. And if the business is making profit, then you don't get paid. And they have a family too. They've got kids too. They've got mortgages too. So like, I do think it's a very sexy and popular concept to be like, fuck the man, work for yourself. And it's like, that's great.
It's all
but
glamorized.
Yeah, it's not. It's rough. It's really rough. And I think also there is this whole thing around morally and also financially and ethically, you are responsible for everyone. And so that's a lot of fucking pressure. Like even if you don't have a team, you are solely responsible for your life, which is really empowering, I think, if you're slightly demented like we are. But it's also quite stressful, because if you aren't like, you know, selling, if you're not working, if you lose a client, even if you're just a freelancer, that means you don't get paid. Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. Like, how did you handle that? Because I feel, again, like I'm very like, it's going to be fine, because I'm just positively paranoid.
Yeah,
like a good balance.
I was very much in that mindset of everything is going to be fine. But
it always is, right? Even when it's not, it's
you
fine.
work it out.
Yeah.
And again, you take those punches as they come, and you just trust your instincts, you follow your gut, and you make the right decisions. Yeah. And are the things over the last 7 years of running a business that I would change? 100%. But actually, I didn't have the time to think. I didn't have the time to, you know, go and discuss it with 10 people who've been there, done that before. And actually often I'd go to people who had got the experience, and their advice would be so shit.
Thank you. So I literally had a conversation with someone the other day, and I asked them advice for something, and the advice they gave me, I was like, is that it?
Yeah, I just wasted that 20 minutes of my time.
I was like, literally, you're telling me what I already know. Like, why am I having this conversation? But then I'll speak to someone else who is far younger, like far whatever, and I'm like, this is literally what I needed to hear. Yeah. And it's so, like, going back to what we were saying about smart money, like just money, it's also like good skills. Like, just because someone has a big title, a big, you know, worked at a big footsie or whatever, it doesn't mean that they know what the fuck they're doing when it comes to running a business, because they haven't run a business before they've been employed.
Exactly. And everyone, irrespective of what they do, in-house, own business, everyone is learning on the job. Mm-hmm. And as much as everyone says, like, I'm an expert and I've done this for X amount of years, there will still be stuff that's thrown at them where they are winging it and just seeing what happens. And I've often found, you know, chat to a 60-year-old man and you'd be like, right, what would you do in this situation? And I love being like, well, actually, that wouldn't work for these reasons. Because also you would then get such a more deeper, interesting conversation around things that they've gone through in their industries that are so many worlds away from influencer marketing or marketing more broadly. And one of the things I'm so fortunate for in the PE process, although it didn't go through and I've got a failed PE, process under my belt, the network that I met was so different to the network that I had previously. And I have zero kind of shame in pulling a business plan together and being like, look, and I'm finding at the moment I have like 1,000,001 I have 1,000,001 ideas. And I'm like, right, what do you think of this? I don't want to know from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
I know this idea will work. I want to know in 3 to 5 years' time, will we be having a conversation about whether you want to buy this?
Yeah.
And if not, what am I missing? Because that is the skill that I don't necessarily have, or, the years of experience industry-wise. So I'm asking them such different questions to if I was setting up Connect, age 27, it would be like, do you think anyone would really, I've never worked at an agency. Do you think anyone would actually buy from me?
Yeah.
And as soon as you've got Nike on your client list, I was like,
No one
right,
cares.
got Nike. Do you want me to do what I'm doing for Nike for you too?
Yeah.
So that completely different circle of wealth, investment, private equity, it's fascinating. But instinctively, I know what is best for the business because that is why I have got the skills to be able to set it up and have the idea in the first place.
That's my biggest fear about investment. Is like, I know this is my business and I know what's right for the business. And sometimes it's hard to quantify that. Like it's hard to go, I know this is the right thing because sometimes you don't even have a reason. You just know because it is yours, right?
Yeah.
And like, data-led businesses, whatever, great. And that is a big part of having investors is like producing data and going, we're doing this because of that. But there's a big piece in there missing, which is like data informed and fine. Get all your information together to be able to make decisions, but also sometimes your gut just needs to lead the way. Like particularly with working with clients, I've turned down a huge amount of clients recently because I just know they're wrong. Like I don't. It's hard to quantify. Like I'll speak to them, I'll be like, I know for a fact you're going to be a nightmare in approving stuff. I know that you're not going to be able to talk at the things I need you to talk at. I know that but I can't quantify that to say like an investor or even sometimes to my team because. Like how do you quantify that when you just know?
Yeah, so we were in I think it was just finished our 4th year of trading and we had over 50 clients. And some of those clients were spending $5,000 a month and some of those clients were spending $1 million a month. And the clients that were spending $5,000 were taking so much more time from a service level perspective than the clients that were doing $1 million. And if you looked at the work, we were doing really innovative, amazing, like some of the proudest work that I've done in my entire career with these clients. And then the stuff we were doing was being so just, you couldn't get anything interesting or exciting through the net. And there was so many cooks in the kitchen from a client's perspective. And again, I had a great relationship with my current investors where I was like, I'm doing this and this makes sense. And these are the reasons why. And they were like, okay. And so at the end of that year, we went from, I think it was 52 clients to 24 clients. And, nearly a 50% drop in client list. And I do remember a meeting where they were like, we trust you, but you're fucking nuts. And I was like, that's what I'll take. If that is how you want to perceive me to be, I know I'm doing the right thing here. And we had amazing conversations with the clients where it was like, look, I'm going to introduce you to some freelancers. I think you could get a better value for your money through there. And what I then did was look at all of the spends over the last 2-year period. And I made minimum spends for every single kind of aspect of our business. And I then did like a client metrics of who spends well and is great to work with, who doesn't spend and is difficult to work with. And you end up with these 3 tiers of clients that are great to work with for different reasons. And then you have this bucket of clients and they were all obviously the same ones that we were going to resign. And the next year was our most profitable year, and some. And it was the right decision because all of a sudden the team were like, right, these are our 4 customer profiles. So every time you're having a new business call, if you're at an event and you're meeting someone, you're like immediately yes or no. They're going to work for this business or they're not. And everyone internally could talk through who those client profiles were, whether they were right. And it was so much easier for everyone at any level to go, I think I've got a lead for us. And then all of the work they were doing was for a certain profile and type of client. And everyone was so much prouder of the work that they were producing and that they were delivering. And actually those other clients, I was always like, I'm here, WhatsApp, call me, email me if you've got questions, if you need stuff. but there's a better service that you can get from a different supplier. And some of them I still speak to today. Some of them I've now taken on as like consultancy. Connect just wasn't the right business for them based on our growth and where we were going. And then when we went through the PE process again, it was like, what happened between 2019 and 2020? You went from X clients to Y, like a 50% drop. And I was like, let me talk you through it. And they just, on paper, it's like, well, you lost 50% of your clients. I'm like, fuck, looking at that number, look at the revenue number, look at the profit number. You know, we went from something like a 17% profit margin to a 46% profit margin. And I was like, that's why you have to trust that I know my industry, I know my business, I know my team, and I know what's going to be best.
It's like that £5,000 to a £5,000 client is a lot of fucking money. £1 million to £1 million a month client is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And therefore it's easier to get shit over the line and be creative and be innovative with the £1 million clients, because they're like, yeah, cool. It's not a huge deal. And we find that as well, like clients with smaller, like budgets are always the hardest to work with. Not from a, like, they're not great people, though. Everyone that we work with is amazing. We're very, very fortunate to have incredible clients, and, you know, we do some really good work for them. But historically, we have found that the clients on the lower budgets are the ones that need to like approve every single thing and like question every single thing and every little detail that most clients trust us to execute without their input is scrutinized.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand, particularly when you're spending what you feel like is a lot of money on marketing.
Yeah.
You want to feel like you're in control, but also you've brought us in as an expert. You brought us in as the personal branding agency. Like, you kind of just need to let us do our thing. Otherwise, you're stopping your investment from actually getting anything in return.
Yeah, exactly.
So you scale Scene and Scene Connect. You are going through the PE deal. Doesn't work out. Somewhere in there, you have your beautiful baby girl.
Yeah.
What happens next?
God, I'm not really sure. I feel like that post-pregnancy...
It was a blur.
It was such a blur. But essentially, the PE house that were acquiring us did an unbelievable amount of due diligence. And essentially, we ran out of time. I was a couple of weeks before my daughter was due. And the conversations I was having with my husband, the conversation I was having with my team, I was like, this isn't fair on anyone. This isn't fair on my unborn baby and the stress that I'm going through. This isn't fair on my senior leadership team, who have very much had an investor that's at arm's length, that they've probably met twice in however many years, to all of a sudden having a proper player from a private equity perspective. And I haven't been able to be there to shield and to support because I'm going on maternity. So I went on maternity, and it gave me the opportunity to really digest the diligence. Because when you are in the rat race, it is just, how do you get through each day surviving? And a lot of the diligence was like, this business is too focused on me. And I was still doing all of the profiling. I was doing all of the events. I was doing all of the pitching. I was bringing in a lot of the leads. And it was like, you know, essentially what happens if Sedge isn't here? And I wasn't going to be there because I was on maternity. And as it happens, I worked, you know, probably still in the hospital with my daughter, working, picking up bits, doing whatever. And I just thought something has to give here. And the idea was very much, in order to make this business more successful from the eyes of an investor, this business needs to not be reliant on me. And in order to do that, I need to hire people to run. And at the time, it was our US office and our UK office. And I can then step back into what, and I didn't really care at all what the title was. I kept being like, just call an intern. And like, there was like whole conversations like, do I become chair? At one point, it was like chairwoman. I was like, why are you calling me a chairwoman? You've called yourself a chair. Just fucking call me chair. Or like non-exec director, whatever. And as it happens, like I did lose a bit of love for not the business, but like what was involved in that business. That PE process was tough. And it was full on. And all of a sudden I had, God love my daughter, not a good sleeper. So I was also trying to make these unbelievably huge decisions on like no sleep whatsoever. I was absolutely knackered. And I was like, I just need to look after myself here. And that's what happens next. So as it stands today, I still own 40% of the business, but I am essentially like a silent investor in the business. I turn up to one board meeting a quarter, and I just let the business do its thing. And again, it's an amazing position to have built something where I'm not in the business day to day, and it runs and is successful. And, you know, that's testament to all those other years that were kind of put forward. But it was, for me at that time, my daughter just had to be my priority.
Do you think that a lot of other entrepreneurs, and probably including yourself, feel like they have to be involved? Like it's almost like if you're not involved, then everything's going to fall down. And so you work yourself to the absolute bone and to the detriment often of your health in order to make that happen.
Yeah, it was just the fear. So I came back to work after 4 months, and it was nothing but fear of what am I going to come back to? What do the client needs? Is everything running as it should do? And that is, again, just the stupidest psychology and mentality to have, because the team was about 60 people at that point. Like if I had a team of 60 and they couldn't run the business, I hadn't got the right hires. So that's where, again, being able to go, what is right for me right now? And a lot of people and a lot of entrepreneurs that I have spoken to, that I'm friends with, are like, huh? You're just like mic dropping on your own business. And I was like, I'm not mic dropping on my own business. Like I still care. I still to this day give connects leads, because I don't want to be running influencer campaigns. That's, I've done influence marketing. Thanks. I'm kind of moving on with the next direction from a career perspective. But it just, like, again, I still care about the business. I still want the business to succeed. I still need the business to succeed because I still am financially invested in it, but not at the sacrifice of being a mum first and foremost.
I really struggle with that. I think for the first couple of years of Klowt, it was like Klowt or nothing. And I think I sacrificed a huge amount of time with my kids. Not intentionally. It wasn't like I'm choosing the business over them, but it felt like I had to.
Yeah.
And that, I think, that's time you're never going to get back. Yeah. But now, again, going back to like this whole point about being a bit more chilled about things, it's like, even if everything in the world goes to shit, which sometimes when you turn on the news, it sometimes feels like it is. But like, even if everything goes to shit, like you will be fine, but you won't be fine if you're not actually enjoying your life.
Yeah.
And I don't think there should ever be a situation where, and I'm such a believer in hard work. Like you and I, one of the things we bond over is we're like, hustle hard, like fucking put the ground, put the hours in, because otherwise you achieve jack all. It really pisses me off when people are like, work smart, not hard. I'm like, you have to work hard to be smart.
Me mad when I see like LinkedIn posts being like, it's 3 p.m. and I run my own business, but it's okay because I'm going to like pick my kids up now. I'm like, great that you're picking your kids up at 3 p.m. You're fucking working tonight.
Yeah, and 100%.
And that's fine.
No one talks about that.
And then work later. That's fine.
Yeah.
But don't say to like,
young people,
16 to 24-year-olds reading your post because you work at a fucking cool agency that you can just stop working at 3 p.m. It is not realistic. And if you are completely stopping at 3 p.m., it's because you have either managed to get to a point where you can build a solid team where you are essentially a more hands-on non-exec director than the CEO managing director of a business.
100%.
And it really pisses me off because, again, when I was pregnant, I was like, it'll be fine. I'll be able to do like bedtime, bath time, and I'll just pick up some bits and pieces in the evening. And, when she naps in the day at the weekend, I can pick up my work there. And it just wasn't sustainable. I was absolutely completely exhausted, like the sleep deprivation that comes with kids.
It's torturous.
And the decisions you make are huge. They impact, for me, 60 other people. So you can't make those decisions on no sleep whatsoever. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice, is like the word I keep bringing up, but like I wasn't willing to not spend time with her to just be in the office for an extra day or to meet an extra client or to do whatever. I was like, there's other people here. This is now their turn.
The reality is, I think people that go, oh, have balance, like you were saying, like clock off at 3 p.m, no worries. Like I've just been in Bali for 4 weeks, whatever. It's because they can afford to have that. Like we see a lot of these like big, particularly like influencer founders who are like, yeah, like don't work, like I don't work too hard. And it's like, yeah, because you just exited for 20 million quid.
Yes, yeah.
When you're trying to grow something, whether it be your career, family, or whatever, you have to work exceptionally hard. And that also is hours. And that's something that people don't like hearing, and they get upset about it because that's the reality.
Yeah.
They don't want to accept that actually there are hours that have to be put in. I used to work till 11 p.m. at night every single night for the first about 2 years of the business. Every single night without fail. Yeah. And some nights it was like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd be back up at 5 to get my kids up and ready to school. Like that's the reality. And I think if you don't think that's the reality, you're absolutely fucking kidding yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You can't put your phone down at 5 o'clock and just expect to have a free evening. It will continue.
It has to. And even if it's in like I always call like a slow evening is like when I've just gone back to a few emails, or like when I've had a quick call with a client or whatever. And they're all the things that no one else sees. Yes. They're all the things that are done like behind closed doors that everyone's like, oh my God, you're smashing. It's like, yeah, because I've sacrificed most of my personal time for this.
Exactly.
But I don't regret any of it.
No, I don't. I genuinely, at the time I was really having this like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to regret this in 3 months' time when Mari is sleeping, or when Mari goes to nursery at 12 months? Like, is everything going to feel like I've just made this huge fuck up of my career? And every single month that goes past, I'm like, oh my God, the best decision I've ever made. I am far happier. I am far more content. It is absolutely the right thing for me, for my family. And again, what I struggle with is this like, oh, Sedge has been put on the shelf. I'm fucking working hard. And I saw your post the other day, like, if you want something done, you give it to a mum.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and I used to say, if you want something done, you give it to the busiest person in the room. And I've been like, I am just fucking getting through shit, because it is, again, I can either sit here and ponder and, you know, get distracted, or I can make this happen, and I can then pick my daughter up from nursery, and I can do bed, and I can do bath. And I'm really good now. I never used to be at like, just not, I don't look at my phone. If I'm hanging out with Mari.
I've literally just got 2 phones as of 2 days ago.
Why?
A business phone and a work phone, because I've always ever had one phone.
Right.
And it made it like, it made me anxious, because like I have to respond to that because it's come through.
I'm the
and now
worst
I'm just
if I see
like,
an email.
leave that over there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on my personal phone with the 30 people that have
Oh my God,
number.
incredible.
You're one of them.
Thanks. I was going to say, which phone am I?
Sent you that message the other day. But yeah, it's like, it's been, I feel like less stressed even in the last like 24 hours of like, no, it's like, it's 8. I'm not responding to that.
Yeah.
Don't need to. It's not urgent.
I think Mara was about 8 weeks old, and I took emails off my phone, and I was like, how have I never done this before? Because I was breastfeeding, and I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and I'd see something from a client, I'd see something from the team, I'd see something from investors, and it wouldn't even be bad. But in my head, I was like, I obviously have to reply to this immediately. Or even if I was thinking I'll reply at 7 a.m. on the, you know, when I next woke up, I couldn't stop my brain from like switching off. And so yeah, I still to this day, like, if you need me and it's urgent for my clients, I am on WhatsApp. And I know there's also people being like, I would never, as an agency founder or business owner, give someone my number. I love it.
Yeah,
I can just really quickly, easy reply. You get what you need in 5 seconds. It doesn't distract from my day. It doesn't feel like War and Peace because it's in a formal email. And I can have my daughter Mondays and Fridays, and I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I am getting through more stuff than I have in the last 2 years of work running Connects.
Yeah. And probably also because you're happy.
I'm happy and I'm doing what I'm good at.
Yeah.
As the business got bigger, it was finance, operations, HR. You know, what chairs do you want in your office? I don't give a fucking shit what chairs we have in our office. Like, that is, yes, I would like everyone to be comfortable and their backs to be, supported. But is that really the best use of my time to choose which 60 chairs we need for the office? Or is there actually someone in operations that can make that decision with far more knowledge than I do about chairs?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at that point now as well. It's like, I just need to be doing what I'm good at, which is personal brand strategy and sales. That's it. No need to worry about anything else. And this is part of that, right? And I think a lot, like you were saying earlier, about a huge part of the like success of your career has been like speaking to people and networking and all that kind of stuff. I don't think I would have had the opportunity to start Klowt and also scale Klowt had I not been like that also. I never had the confidence to do it, but there was always like a curiosity there. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, sorry, like, do you mind if I just like, ask you a few questions? And now it's just like, hey, I need 5 minutes from you.
But people by people, and you've got 100%. An infectious personality. Like, you're always fun. I'm always like, yes, my evening with Amelia. Daniel's on baby duty. Like, this is going to be ace.
Mum's night out. Woo!
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, again, you're like me. You just like vibe, not to sound like a kid, but off other people. Yeah. And that is like the energy, the ideas, the excitement. And you're like, yeah, actually it is hard. Or I've got someone that I can share some war wounds with. Or I can be like, how do you do 2? How? It's going to be so hard.
Yeah, 2 is feral.
Brilliant. I've only got 3 months left. So yeah,
brilliant. But like at least Murray's a little bit older now. How old will she be when the baby's born?
So she'll be 2.
Okay, so Harlow was 18 months old when Hendrix was born, and I genuinely feel like I stopped feeding one and then started feeding the other. Like, it wasn't really that close, but it felt like it was like 2 weeks later.
Oh my god.
2 under 2 is feral. My cousin had 2 under 12 months. Yeah, don't. She's mad. Like, she's going to kill me for talking about her.
Ripping the Band-Aid off, but no.
I know. I was like 12. I was like, wow, good on you.
It's funny because like Mari's now like 19, 20 months, and I feel like I've like got my life into a really good rhythm where like Daniel and I work out evenings, and like we've got an amazing nanny from her nursery that every like Friday, every now and again, we're like, sod it, we just go for a take, like go for cinema or go for a meal. And she's brilliant, and our daughter loves her, and she can put her down to sleep, and she'll sleep through the night. And so there's And now I'm like, oh my God, in 3 months' time, I'm going to be
all
straight back
again.
into all of the bottles, the sanitizing, the no sleep, bleeding nipples. And I'm like, what am I doing?
The only thing I would say is with the first, I feel like when you go from 0 to 1, it's like, oh my God, this is fucking mental, because your whole life then revolves around the baby. Whereas when you go from 1 to 2, that baby has to fit into your life. Like, you're not going to disrupt Murray's routine to fit the, like, no offense to the new baby, but like, you don't. Hendrix just had to fit in. Like,
Yeah.
like either sink or swim, dude. Like, this is what's happening. Harlow needs to go to playgroup. That's what's happening. She needs, like,
You're going to nap there. That's where you're
no,
napping.
but that's the thing, right? And so I think actually the second baby is often easier, not because it's an easier baby, but because they just have to be.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have the choice of like going for a like walk at night to like get them off to sleep. It's like, you need to sleep, because if you don't stop crying, she's gonna start crying. Like,
Yeah.
that's just, you just get on with
Molly
it.
coddled Mari within an inch of her life.
Yeah.
And again, I'm fully aware the second one will not have that luxury.
Even photos, right? Like,
I
look
haven't taken a single picture of my pregnancy.
literally, but also the baby. Like, when you look back at my camera reel, it's like for 50% of like, you know, the baby pictures I've got are all Harlow, and then Harlow, or more than that, like 90% all Harlow doing stuff, baby bump pictures, scans, whatever. I don't think I even went for a like 3D scan with Hendrix. I was just like, it's a squished baby. Like, it's going to look exactly the same as Harlow.
Yeah.
Like, even pictures on my phone, there's like a handful of him and like all of her, because you have two. Like, you've got one in one hand, one in the other.
Our house has got so many pictures of Mari, and I keep saying to my husband, I was like, we have to slow this down, because there's like no wall space.
Yeah, where are we going to put the
And,
other one?
Yeah, 2.0 is just going to be like, all right, well, I know who's the favourite.
Yeah, well, but that's it, right? My brother used to say that as well. Like, when you look through all the photo albums, it's like all Millie. My family call me Millie, and then there's like a handful of my brother. But yeah, second child is always easier, I think, because it's much easier to go from 1 to 2. But also running a business as well, and like, I appreciate you're not like in the weeds of Scene anymore and Scene Connects, but like, you're still doing so many other things. So how? I mean, maybe it's a bit of a forecasting question more than anything, but like, how the fuck are you gonna do that?
I don't know. You're going to be
figure it out.
my therapy when I'm
Yeah.
like, help, what do you do? But yeah, I'm just going to figure it out. Figured it out the first time. I'll figure it out the second time. We had a nanny the first time when I went back to work. I actually found nanny harder than nursery. But again, I don't know whether it was ages of child and stuff, but I just find nursery. She loves it. She, like
good for
me, is like
social.
hyper and just
Yeah.
excited. So great being around other kids. Whereas I just felt guilty when I was there trying to work, and if I could hear Mari crying. So I don't know what we'll do to kind of maintain work. Obviously, as I am not an employee of a business, I don't get maternity cover and pay and stuff like that anymore. And also, like, I do enjoy working, and I love it, and I'm still ambitious, and I'm still driven, and I still want to do all of the things I want to do. So we'll work it out.
I think a lot of people think, even if they don't outwardly say this, that like, you're a mum or you're an ambitious woman. Like, it's almost like you can't be like, I am a much better mum when I'm smashing it at work than I am when I'm not, or if I'm not doing anything. I took 15 months mat leave with my daughter because I was so sick for the first like 6 months, like literally lost weight, like didn't even put any weight on, which I look back at pictures now, I'm like, I wish I was that small. When I was 6 months pregnant, I wish. But like, so I took a really long mat leave because I was so ill. But I remember my brain just like being like, what are we doing? Like, smash head against microphone. Like, this is horrendous.
Yeah. I will still be working in some capacity. Again, I love it. I enjoy it. I thrive off it. But also, like, I want to see my girls, I'm having another girl, working, and
Yeah, more role model.
yeah, I don't want to just, I also don't know what I do, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get excited by sterilizing bottles.
I have so much respect for mums who are like those. I have this friend who's just an earth mum. She's just like, everything is like amazing, and she's gentle parenting, and like, I'm just like, I want to be you when I grow up, but like, I literally scream at them. Like, this morning I wanted to pull my hair out. Like, Hendrix had come down, they're very good actually. They get themselves dressed every morning, they brush their hair, they brush their teeth, they're very independent. Every now and again they'll just have like a little thing where they just are like, fuck you. Basically. Yeah. He came and says, he was like, I'm wearing my Arsenal kit today. I was like, it's school, you can't wear Arsenal. He was like, I am. And I was like, this is not what I need. It's
What do
7
I
o'clock
do?
in the morning. And then it's like, whatever. And you asked me about what you do with 2 at that stage. I was just like, fucking wear it under your kit, under your uniform. I don't care. Just put your uniform on. So he's gone to school with a full Arsenal kit under his uniform this morning.
Amazing.
But as I said, you just fucking figure it out.
You've got to do what it takes.
You have to.
Yeah, I always laugh when I see like people on iPads. They're like, oh, are you going to be an iPad parent? And now I'm like, whatever it takes. You want Baby Shark for the 9,000th time in a restaurant? Have Baby Shark in a restaurant. I don't care. You're chilled, you're eating.
Happy mum, happy
you're
life.
Happy.
Who cares?
We are good. Yeah.
Do you think, just on the topics of kind of being mum and a woman, because I really prescribe to this thing that I don't believe, like you were saying earlier, like chairwoman, etc. It's kind of on the same lines, but I hate the concept of female founder. I hate the concept of working mum. I hate the concept of like women in business, because at the end of the day, we're all running a business, and why the fuck does our gender have anything to do with our skill set? But I do also think, on the kind of, I guess, different side of that same coin, that there is a lot of pressure and also a lot more maybe like misunderstanding of like how women running businesses, and particularly mums running businesses, show up. And I think there is I certainly find this with some of my friends who are running businesses who are men, and even if they have kids, they don't really get it. Like, they'll call me at like 9 p.m. and can't really understand why I can't answer the phone. And it's like, because I'm dealing with my children. They're like, oh, like they can't comprehend why, like, because we're the same, right? But they have partners and I don't. So I think it's a difficult thing to navigate and have an open conversation about, because on one hand, you don't want to make people feel like, I never want to have a situation where I've got a friend or a client or whatever, where I'm like, you're a guy who's married and have help at home, you will never get it, because everyone's life is subjective. But equally, it's also like, I can't. How have you managed to navigate that?
We definitely went through, and it's like our generation, they're like, girl boss.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah. And I don't.
Also, when have you ever taken anyone seriously who's like, I'm a girl boss?
Never.
What venture capitalist is going to go, yeah, I'm going to chuck £1 million into that? Like, no one is taking girl bosses seriously anywhere.
But it's also just imagine like the audacity of someone to walk in and be like, hey, I'm a boy boss.
I quite like that.
I also did that in that, like,
I'm a
TikTok.
male entrepreneur.
But it doesn't happen. So again, like, how do you, and even again, through my PE process, we met, I think it was about 12 PE houses. And when I was asking some of the questions of like, why us? Why are you here? Oh, we're making an active decision to invest in women. And I'm like, oh, how many female-led businesses do you have? You'll be our first. And you're like, brilliant. You've just told me you're not right for us, because you are just going, what's that tick box that I can do to kind of look good? And,
hate that.
You know,
it's like charity.
Exactly. And but equally, I do get it. And I think one of the biggest things for me when I did become a mom and was trying to juggle, I always tried to, and really thought that I was doing a lot to help parents who are working. And I remember one person in particular who had 3 kids. And as soon as I was back at work, I called her and I was like, we weren't close. She like worked at the business. She was great, but only worked at the business for like 9 months. And I called and I was like, oh my God, I got it so wrong. Like, I always try to be like, come in whenever you want, leave whenever you want. I want you at every single like dance show, Christmas show, you name it, parent comes first. But like, without realizing, I would probably message or email during bath time, and
expect a response.
Or you'd have those moments where you should be like, oh, I'm leaving now. You'd be like, oh, okay. Fuck. Okay. What have I got to pick up now? And actually, again, just seeing it from doing it and being a mom, you do just have this like unbelievable appreciation and respect for even like my parents. I'm like, fair play. Like, you didn't have Baby Shark to stick on to distract me for however long. Like, you actually had to talk to me. So yeah, it is. But again, I don't think unless you have had children, you can understand the sleep deprivation. Unless you've got children, trying to balance and juggle and fit it all in and be a good mom and a good boss and everything else in between.
I also think there's a part of there which is like, oftentimes people look at hours and things like that, but they never actually look at what gets done. Like, we were talking about my post I did the other day. I said, if you want shit done, hire a mum. And I genuinely mean that. Like, every mum I know who works, like, even if they're only working 3 days a week, they get done in 3 days a week, 5 days worth of work.
Oh, I am getting 5 days worth of, I'm getting 6 days worth of work done in 3 days. Yeah. I am so smart with my time. I am so laser focused. Because again, what's the compromise? I don't get to see my kid. Well, no
fuck
thanks.
that.
Yeah. And because I don't have to deal with all of the other shit that comes with running with a business at the moment, I'm just like, right, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to do. Yeah, you look like an absolutely great client for me. Off we go.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess like moving forward, you're looking at, you were speaking about clients, like all that kind of stuff. So what are you doing right now?
Right now I'm consulting. So I'm consulting for businesses like broadly within marketing. I do have a few business ideas. But again, it's like
Sedge.
deja vu where I'm pregnant. So I'm just trying to not rush into anything. But again, I know how the structure would look to make sure that priority number one is home and family and everything else is secondary.
And that'll probably make the business more successful.
Yeah.
Because you're happier.
Yeah, 100%. And everything's just gamified at the moment because it's like, right, from September, I won't earn any money. So how much money can I make before September as a consultant? And just keep doing a really fucking good shit job so those clients aren't one-off, they are becoming retainers. And yeah, it's fun. I'm loving it.
I love that. I love that for you. And I also wonder whether part of that, like from an outside looking in, also knowing you as a friend, part of the enjoyment you're getting now is because it's like that scrappy sort of stuff that you had at the start.
Yeah. I'm like the worst for process. I'm like, don't kill me with a like boring ass process.
Yeah, I want to be here, there, doing this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's part of the reason why, like, when businesses scale, like the culture often doesn't scale either, because the scrappiness of it is oftentimes the most attractive thing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And everyone learns. Everyone learns, and everyone gets to like realize skills and bits and pieces that they didn't even know they would be good at. And then you like pick up all these amazing like nuances and skills from your team where, again, when we were smaller, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to really accelerate that, or I'm going to really support them with this. And as you're bigger, you're like, I didn't know everyone's name.
Yeah.
I've been on maternity. I came back. I was like, fuck. Shit. Like, where's my cheat sheet?
Who are you?
Yeah,
I'm Dave.
My, like,
who are you?
Boobs leaking because I was back to back in meetings. They're probably all like, avoid her.
I love that. I want to get into, like, as we kind of like wrap up, into personal branding. I think it's not ironic that you started out in influence and influencer industry, and almost all of your business used to come through your LinkedIn and through your network, etc. And obviously we met through kind of like personal branding activities. Yeah. As a business owner, how important do you think your reputation within the industry, also internally and externally, was to the success of the business?
It was everything. And again, when I first started posting on LinkedIn, and I'd been in social forever and a day, so it was quite natural for me to post on a social platform, and I'd be talking about the business successes, the business wins, what we've done for clients. And like, as you know, like when I was running the business, like 75% of our leads came through LinkedIn. But to start with, I was like, oh, this is awkward, this is uncomfortable, this is horrendous. And then actually like, fuck it. If it's doing what the business needs, everything else doesn't matter. And I'm sure there is probably someone that I went to uni with that is screenshotting a few of my LinkedIn posts going, this is cringe, this is embarrassing, or who the hell does she think she is? They're not in my life. It doesn't bother me. I don't know about it. And even now as a consultant, I'm getting all of my leads through TikTok at the moment.
I love that.
And I'm seeing TikTok as a new business generator, which I never did TikTok when I ran the business because it was just something I couldn't find time for. But again, if you are finding time for TikTok, for LinkedIn, for building your audience and your reputation, as you say, then those leads come, and that allows you to scale quicker and more effectively too. And so part of me like really kicks myself that in the pandemic I didn't start doing TikTok content. And TikTok is wild. As again, I know you know, with your Porsche drama.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go and look at one of the posts that are pinned to the top of my TikTok.
So good. So
I still go back through that. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and it's funny. I think Ollie even said it, who's sat in the room right now. I'm so desensitized to those comments now. Like, even 18 months ago, I'd be like, you think I look like a man? Whereas now I'm like, oh, cool. I actually really love it.
The TikTok comments so amazing.
I know.
Like, I've probably had
it's like a carry-on film.
100 comments about my eyebrows. And
I think your eyebrows are fabulous.
Also, I was never like at school plucking my eyebrows and now having to get them laminated. Like, these are my eyebrows. And I'm like, I'm proud of the fact I don't have to
Don't be salty, bitch.
Yeah, but I'm like, what is such a niche thing to be like, just going to call you out. My eyebrows look like ping pong flippers, according to TikTok.
That's amazing. Ping pong flippers. I might find that comment. I'm going to put it in a frame for you. I love that. I left a comment on Archbishop of Banterbury the other day. It was a picture of a van, and it was a company called Roots Maneuvered.
Okay.
And there were so many people who were like, I don't understand it. So I went onto Wikipedia, because obviously Roots Maneuver is like iconic British rapper. And I copied and pasted the Wikipedia explanation of like who he was. And I pasted it into comments, and I was like, for anyone that has no taste in music, like, here's an explanation. Wink face. And the people underneath it being like, you think you're better than us? And I was like, this is a meme page. Grow up.
Yeah.
Like, grow up.
But But it is entertaining, isn't it? Just like
it really is. It's so funny. And it's almost like when I look at those comments now, before I'd be like, oh my God, they think I'm like a horrendous person. Now I look at that, I'm like, that's hilarious. Like it is actually brings me quite a lot of joy. How do you deal with those comments about your flip-flop eyebrows?
Those ones I love. I'm so thick-skinned, I couldn't care less. The only ones I struggle with are people thinking that I am not championing women in work because I let go of my business.
Yeah.
And being at the helm of the business. And you can't, and it's like, don't react, right? Or like kill them with kindness. And I just like, those ones hurt.
Yeah, because it's not the truth.
Yeah. And also you don't know me for shit. Like you don't know what the decisions and the lengths and the sleepless nights I went to make the decision that was right for me and was right for my family. But other than that, I'm like, bring it on. The more comments, the better the engagement, the better the reach. Keep it going.
Yeah, the more leads you get.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that as well. I had, I think a lot of people look at my content, unless they know the context of my content and, you know, have followed me or know me or have come across me in some capacity. Some of the rhetoric that I have in the narrative I talk about without like the female in business thing and like CEOs and all that kind of stuff, people perceive that often, particularly if they are part of that tribe, to be anti-feminist. And I'm like, how can I be anti-feminist if I'm a woman running a business with a team and then talking about that? Like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I really struggle with that because I think like I'm hoping setting an example for other young women. Go be like, I'm a single mum who's gone through a divorce over the last 3 years, who's had multiple lawsuits, have had to buy out a shareholder. Like, I've had the most wild 4 years and I'm still fucking here and I'm still thriving. Like that to me, when I was 21 would have been like, oh my God, like amazing. Like I'm trying to be the person that I needed to be for me when I was 21.
Exactly.
And it does hurt when people look at one piece of content or whatever it be and just make all these assumptions about you.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've kind of like come to a realization that if you know it's not true, why the fuck do you care?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you know what someone is saying, it can only hurt you if you think it's true.
Yeah.
If someone is saying you're anti-feminist, you're anti-woman, it will only hurt me if I think it's true.
Yeah.
Or there is some truth in it, and I know it's not true, so I'm just like, whatever. Fucking think what you need to think, dude. Carry on.
Yeah. And the bigger the audience, the more likely you are to get a bit of heat, and you've got to work out how to deal with it, whether you are an influencer, whether you are running a business, irrespective, you put yourself on the firing line by the position you're in.
But also you need to put yourself in the firing line to win. And I think there is this tall poppy syndrome, right? No one's afraid we call it tall poppy syndrome in Australia, where like when the poppies grow above all the other poppies in the field, the farmer comes and chops that poppy head off because they want all of that when they come to harvest, and they all need to be the same height. People look like that too. They're like, oh no, let's not put our head above the parapet just in case everyone judges us. Like the reality is the reason why that poppy gets chopped off is because it stands out. It got the most sun in the time that it was above everyone else. Like the sun didn't give a fuck who it blinds, right? So I'm at that stage now. I'm just like, fuck it. Like if I piss people off, no worries. I had someone I spoke to the other day who's like a bit of a mentor being like, oh, your content's a bit negative. I was like, what are you reading? And he's like, oh, you talk about failure a lot. And I was like, yeah, because everyone fucking fails, dude. Like that is the reality. I was like, oh, I don't know how you're going to be perceived by big corporates. And I'm like, I work with footsies like inbound off the back of that content.
Yeah.
So thanks, but no thanks.
I had a client throughout the PE process too, who said, as part of their diligence, said, if Sedge spent less time on LinkedIn, imagine how successful her business would be. And we won that client through LinkedIn. And so then I got a call from the PE house buying us being like, oh, do you think you post on LinkedIn too much? I was like, right, let me just talk through every single one of our clients, how we got them, where those leads come from, that one in particular. And then you tell me whether you think, you know, I'm on LinkedIn too much or not enough. And also like, you know, like you also, now I have to do everything myself. It's painful. But actually I was at the business, I had people that would help me write content, or I'd be like, right, I'm running into a meeting, but I've got this, you know, I'm thinking this, or this just happened. And someone would help you like draft and write those bits up. So it was easier when I was running the business to keep my platforms, because revenue came from it, up and running. When you are literally a one-man band, way harder.
Yeah.
And it's like, someone the other day said to me, you're absolutely everywhere. And I'd spoken at a school and their kids went there. They then went for dinner with their friend who I had previously worked with when I was at 3 The Phone Network. Then I had a TikTok about a Stanley Cup that got like 300,000 views, and their daughter had seen it. And obviously with a name like Sedge, you don't get away with that. He's like, you're literally everywhere. And I was like, oh God, I'm really sorry. He's like, this is amazing. He's like, this is exactly like your industry, what you do. You should be everywhere. And it should be going, God, have I read that? Am I up to date? Have I got the latest data? And he was like, I love the fact that every single time I'm talking about what it is that I'm doing and what I'm thinking about, your name keeps cropping up because it just keeps reaffirming you are the person that I need to deliver this.
It's funny, you know, because I use the likeness of retargeting. So companies spend a huge amount of money on ads, right? Your personal brand is like retargeting someone. They come across you in your LinkedIn content and they like your post. They then go and see you on TikTok. Your name then gets mentioned. The more attention that you can get, and people think that attention is a dirty word. Attention is a million, billion, $1 trillion industry that people pay companies like yourself, fucking Saatchi and Saatchi, WPP, like all these massive organizations to win them
to
attention.
Get those eyeballs, yeah.
So why, if you're going to spend 50 grand a month with an agency that's going to produce you a handful of leads, you've got 15 minutes a day to post on LinkedIn because that attention's free. Yeah. It's also way more engaging, way more interesting. You get 8 times more engagement than a company page sharing exactly the same fucking content. You get 560% more, 561% more reach as an individual than a company brand. And that's not even the founder, that's an individual within the business. That could be your fucking intern.
Yes.
And leads, as you know, that come through personal brands convert 7 times more frequently. So like, tell me why personal branding is not important.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But I still think there is this narrative, particularly with people who are running footsie businesses or whatever, of like, oh, we have to be kind of like behind enemy lines. It's like, we're not behind the kind of ally lines. And I'm like, you don't understand what you're missing out on. There's a reason why, you know, all of these brands have grown so fast. Like Facebook's a great example of that. And, you know, WeWork potentially a negative example, but it certainly proves my point. That business wouldn't be where it is if it wasn't for Adam Newman's personal brand.
Yeah.
1,000, like you cannot tell me that they would have got that $40 billion valuation on literally like a Regis office with a nice kitchen if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
People invest in people.
I've always said that. People buy from people. That is what it comes down to.
100%. So lastly,
yes,
because we're like, I could literally talk to you for fucking hours and I'm getting looks from my producer of like the battery's going to run out on the cameras as always. What's next for you apart from having a baby?
Yeah, so next 3 months there'll be another little human, which
another
is another little girl. Priority number 1. Need to work out what the hell I'm going to call her because that's stressing me out. Continuing consulting. I've always been really passionate about helping people get into the industry, and the reason for that is, you know, when I started working in social, and I was one of the first people in the UK, there wasn't someone I could go to LinkedIn and be like, I've just got some questions, or a manager that had loads of experience, can we sit down for an hour and you can tell me about it? There was literally no one. I had to learn on the go. And so I've been doing a lot of like mentoring, going into universities, going into schools. Little geeky stat, but 65% of Gen Alpha, which is the generation still being born, the jobs that they will do when they're our age in their 30s, 50% of them don't even exist yet.
Yeah.
And so
I think that stat was like 30% when we were at university. It was like 30% of the jobs that we were going to do didn't exist. And now it's 50. That's wild.
Yeah, insane. And so again, it's like, what can I do when I do have some spare time to just really support, help, mentor, whether that is through TikTok content, whether that is built a rod for my own back, going through 1,000,001 CVs from people because the job market is obviously horrendous at the moment. So there's definitely like a passion project in there, as well as continuing to consult. I've definitely got another business in me at some point. And then obviously, having my second kid.
Your second baby.
Yeah. So being busy still.
Just a little bit. Last question. If you could, I always say like just fucking post it, right? If you could just fucking post or do anything, what would it be?
God, okay, if I could just post anything, what would it be? I've learned from you, so anything I do want to just fucking post, I'm like, just fucking post it. And they're always the ones that are more controversial, obviously, do better because you strike the opinion.
Polarize, yeah.
God, you might have to cut this like pause from me out. What do I...
Or if there's like a message that you want to just like scream from the rooftop, what would it be?
I guess the thing I always come back to is around moms not losing their drive, not losing their ambition. Don't rule them out. Don't think of them as their like glass ceiling. And it's the bit I find hard to post and to talk about because it is the bit that feels more personal as I'm like working this whole new era of mum life out. But mums are fucking super women. And juggling work, careers, families, and kind of that empowerment and those success stories are like what gets me excited and kind of what keeps me kind of motivated to keep going.
I love that. And also staying hydrated. How do we do that too?
Yeah.
I have a reminder on my phone that says drink water, and I have it 4 times a day.
Oh my God.
It's really sad. Sedge, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I wanted to do this for so fucking long. I felt like we could do this for another 2 hours, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I absolutely love doing these podcasts, and I would be able to reach a hell of a lot more people if you like and subscribe. So thank you to all of you who have already liked and subscribed, and if you haven't, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so we can reach more people.